Okay, it is exactly 8:30 p.m. Central Standard Time, and today is Wednesday, February the 3rd, 2021. Welcome to week 5 and the final lecture for this course. As you know, there will be no week 6 lecture, and tonight I'm going to talk a little bit about at the end the requirements for week 6 in terms of what you do. I do want to say up front that I will be grading, trying to get your assignments completed at least for weeks 1 to 3. I already got one. 2 to 3, 2 and 3 for sure by Friday, and then over the weekend I'll be working on getting 4 completed because week 5's assignments are not due until Sunday. So that means Saturday I'll be doing that. So hang in there. It's been really tough for me. Still pretty tough now, dealing with all the things that happened, not just with my sister passing, but with how it was handled, excuse me, by um, my nieces um, and nephews. They didn't do it right. But anyway, and it's tough. I won't see her again. They won't have a service. They're going to cremate her. And so it's pretty bad. People need closure. They're not even going to have a memorial, which, so it's tough. It's tough. And if any of you ever been through that scenario, it's pretty difficult to operate on the basis of how those things operate. So, okay, excuse me. All right, so I see I have a pretty decent turnout tonight. 3 of you, um, including one student that I've wondered about the whole semester quarter. Mercedes, you have the first name, excuse me, of my wife's car, and the last, and the B for Benz, but yours is Barlow. So I said, yeah, so you could be Mercedes B driving a Mercedes Benz. And then the other thing is that I have a really good friend. I haven't seen him in years and years and years. He's probably passed now and lived in Alaska. And that was his last name, Barlow. And he and his wife, uh, yeah, yeah, I think I knew that. Uh, and uh, keep you in my prayers on that. That's a pretty tough thing. I was just looking at, and talking about COVID, I was just looking at the news, and actually, I have it on even now while I'm talking to you. You guys probably can't even hear it in the background because of the headset. If I wasn't on the headset, you'd probably be able to hear it. I don't think you can hear the television. Can you hear it? Can you hear it? You can't hear it, can you? Yeah, I didn't think so because these headsets are really good about, and then uh, um, my microphone works when it's right near my mouth, but I found out that the other day I recorded with with the microphone up here, and you could still hear me, but it sounded like I was farther away. But at any rate, yeah. So when I saw that name Barlow, I thought about my friend in Alaska, Pastor Barlow, and I know his wife passed, and I think he did too, living in Fairbanks, Alaska. So, all right. So let's get started here. I'm going to share my screen. So this is the end of the road for lectures. My motto in here, you can see here that week 5. So I will be posting that here, and that it is quite clear that we don't have a week 6 lecture. So if anybody asks, all they got to do is look at the schedule again. And I think I've only said from the beginning of the course that there was no week 6 lecture. This was a course that they decided not to do it. And actually, I'm kind of happy because in my other 2 classes where there are 6 lectures, I've got to do week 6 tomorrow night and week 6 in the other class on the same time tomorrow night. So this week I will have done 5 lectures, and so that's why I say I got a lot of work dealing with these gradings. So all right, so let's look at the calendar for the last time. Okay, here it is. Let me move you guys up here and you can see it. This is where we are today. The live lecture, Monday. This was the topic that we're going to deal with, challenges within the field of corrections. We're going to talk about what those challenges are. Initial post due last night, sensible revocation, and your reply post due Saturday the 6th on the same topic. And then Sunday, your written assignment, release planning, and actually, I think I'm right. Yeah, your live lecture, and then your quiz. And so you should be aware that actually the final week starts the next day, but the assignments that will be due on the 9th, that's it. So your initial post for week 6, which I'm going to talk about, and reply posts will both be due on the 9th. Not the 10th, not the 13th. And then the last thing you'll do is you'll have the quiz. Now, be aware that you're not going to have the same. Anyway, we'll get to that in a few minutes. So the last quote written assignment, other than the quiz, will be due the 7th, and that's one of the reasons why I think that they decided not to have a lecture scheduled for week 6. Again, I'm happy about that. So, all right. So everybody's clear about the fact that the course will absolutely end on the 9th. If you submit anything at 12 o'clock, too bad. It's not going to be graded. I don't care if it's 100%. You can't submit any written assignments after that. So if your assignment for week number 5 is submitted on Monday, you'll get points taken off. If it's Tuesday, you'll get points taken off. If you submit it Wednesday, you'll get no points. All right. So let's close that up. And let's go to the challenges within the field of corrections and see the assignments. So this is sensible revocation. As you should know, and I'm kind of starting the lecture by talking about this, is that the goal is, whether it's parole or probation, is to try not to keep the person in prison longer for the parole. Try not to send the person to prison to serve the rest of their time. That's the goal. But because individuals violate technical violations and do what we call catch a case, also referred to as new offenses. What that simply means is that while you're on parole or probation, you commit another crime. And so one of the two things that happen, then you're charged with that crime and you're going to be tried for that. And then you're going to have a VOP. If it's parole, violation of parole, if it's probation, violation of probation, and the violations could result in revocation, which is because individuals either don't follow the technical violations, they commit technical violations, but you'll be surprised at the number that even after being on parole will find themselves where they commit new offenses. That just amazes me. Now, that wouldn't surprise me if the problem is drugs and alcohol. I've already addressed that so many times. And those of you who will be taking drugs and crime, which, by the way, starting Wednesday of next week, I'll be teaching drugs and crime, J250, and introduction to criminal law. So if any of you have signed up for those two, I have bad news for you. Well, good news, depending on how you look at it. You'll be back with me again. And then the other thing is for those of you who don't pass, and it's just a handful, not even a handful that don't. You'll see me again in this course in the spring when they run it again in term 1. So the point of the matter is that drugs they result in individuals catching other cases, because I've already said that people commit crimes to support their drug habits, and that's why we'll deal with that in depth in that particular course. At the end of this course, I'm asking any of you if you're going to be in any of those classes. So anyway, so what exactly is sensible revocation? What is it? And we're going to talk about that topic today. But you're going to take these two scenarios involving Pat and Chris, and you're going to look at them who were placed on parole, and has to do with drug abuse. And you'll see some of the things that I've kind of talked about already, and determine what's done. So again, taking into consideration sensible revocation, pretty much what it means is that you can revoke the parole, but you don't want to send them back, because probably the reason why you're going to discover that one or both of these individuals committed the violation is because of what I said earlier. Substance abuse, and substance abuse is an illness, and locking up people 20 years for substance abuse and not treating them for the illness is the same as if you get sick with any disease and you don't treat the individuals for it. It's going to continue to fester in them, and then it will go on and affect other people that they come in contact with, which is kind of like the danger that we share about individuals self-quarantining, dealing with COVID-19. So I'm real tough on that. I try not to go around people, and the people in my house know the rules. In fact, I have a daughter who she doesn't live with us anymore, but she can't come over because she likes to party, and she's in that group. She's 21 now. And did you not know, or did you hear on the news that the group now that is really the super spreader of this coronavirus, and now you got these new strains. I just saw on the news today about a woman who lost her husband. I think he was 36 or 46, one or the other, and it's just sad. But anyway, the point of the matter is that individuals that fit within the group, probably that many of you fall into, 20 to 40 something years old, bringing that stuff back to people's, to their families, and it's dangerous. So anyway, so look at these two scenarios, and then so deal with the issues. Uh, Notice it ends that Pat is positive for uh, once again for cocaine. Again, it probably, once you get into the scenario, which I'm not going to go into in detail, you can go into that. And then, oh wow, yeah, I'm trying not to have my congregation to be in that same situation. Yeah, it's pretty tough. We just got lost our pastor. Yeah, and that's exactly what I was talking about. So you get what you get what I just said then a few minutes ago, right? My daughter says that we're paranoid. I says, ha! I said, little girl, no, you can't come in our house. We don't go to her house because she likes to party and then exposed to too much. And unfortunately, groups of kids that are in colleges, that's where they capture it. You guys can't capture it going to this college, um, uh, as far as I know, because you're online for this program anyways. Some programs are like medical assisting. They have, but they have some strict standards in your campuses, you know. So, where are you, Mercedes? What state are you in? Kansas. Oh, okay. So yeah, I think they got two campuses in Kansas. Or is it just one now? I think you got two campuses in Kansas. So yeah, I've heard about the issues involving COVID and the state. Faith, what state are you in? Where are you? Minnesota. Yeah, Lord knows there's some up there. I got family up there in Minneapolis, Hennepin County, which is like Cook County here, the biggest county. Elijah, what about you? Where are you? Um, Minnesota too. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So this is very real, and my yeah, it's bad. It's bad. Yeah, my cousins, yeah, and being in Hennepin County, they've been there all their life. I go up there to visit them, but never, well, one time I went in the winter because I had some business up there. I swore to God that if I got out of there, I would never go back up there in the winter. But I'd go up there and hang out in the summer, and I haven't been there in years. And so anyway, yeah, so it's pretty tough in all of these three areas. So anyway, so you know what to do, deal with this scenario. Explain what constitutes a technical violation versus a new offense. And I mean, that's pretty easy to explain what a new offense is. It says what it is. Include examples of technical and new offenses. Now, you can just pretty much remember, if you just help you out with technical, is that whatever the parole board, in the case of this one, parole, or if we were dealing with probation, which I'll just parallel them, even though it's not directly the assignment, but you can compare and contrast. But the fact of the matter is that if you violate the terms of your parole or probation, um, such as um, not reporting, not getting a job when they help you going to school or whatever it is that you're supposed to be doing, not going to if you have a drug issue, not going to your sessions or those kinds of things. And then, of course, if you even drinking, even drinking alcohol can be a technical violation, and oftentimes people violate on those bases. Um, but then the new offense is like while you're doing that, you commit a theft or robbery or anything that's a new charge. Detail the reasons why the parolee should or should not have his sentence revoked. Include examples from the scenario to support your reasons, and there's plenty there for you. Describe your thoughts as to what it actually means, and then that's in your initial post now. In your reply post, and then you deal with whether or not the one of your peers actually accurately explained technical or new offense violations and supported their recommendations, and give us the information. So it's basically, see, good people, you get the point. As I said from the beginning, that discussion posts take the place of being in class physically with you, even though the closest thing that you have is me lecturing to you. But you see how many of you, there's more than 3 of you in my class, as you know already. I don't have to, that's not a secret because you see the discussion posts. And so anyway, the bottom line is you're going to deal with this topic. It's a very interesting topic. So now for the last written assignment, other than the quiz, which you have, I'm not going to spend a lot of time over that. You know, you have 3 opportunities between now and Sunday to get that done. So let's talk about release planning. So you're going to deal with this scenario that says that you've been promoted in an agency, and you have to look at your state's process and policies that relate to release planning. So you got to know what that is in your state. It says, after several conversations with an expert, national expert, having the honor of being asked to serve as a consultant with a select group from around the U.S. who have been tasked with assessing several state processes. So the first state you are asked to assess is a determinant sentencing state, such as they have guidelines that determine prison sentences. All right. So offenders, okay, you live in Big Lake. Okay, remember we were talking about the state, right? So that's the town you're in, right, Elijah? Right? Yep. I don't have a clue where that is, but I know they got all those towns, little towns all over the place. But you're going to deal with your oh, wait a minute. I thought I saw Florida in there. I live in Newport Richey. Oh, Seiko lives in Newport Richey. Oh, I know exactly where Newport Richey is. In fact, I was there at this church there in Newport Richey, big church, where Rasmussen has its graduations uh, July the 26th, which was a Saturday in 2019, to surprise one of my students who lives in Tampa, who graduated. So, but at any rate, though, yeah, so it down there. Oh, I don't even have to talk about what's going on with COVID there. I would not go to Florida, even if I keep getting these calls from agencies that ask me, they want to give me free tickets, 3 nights, 2 days, 3 nights for like $100 and something. I said, yeah, okay, passes, and then they try to give you passes to places like either Universal. I said, but then, you know, I don't think you want to really take it. But the point of the matter is that it comes with the consequences of possible COVID. Someone I know real well, their family went down there, and they were there, and they said they were okay, but then they've been back 2 weeks, and now a couple of them are getting sick, and they haven't been tested yet, but we're waiting for the results on them. So anyway, so you're going to deal with offenders are released to parole after serving 2/3 of the sentence, and that's pretty much. So you, with parole, standard pretty much is you serve 1/3 of your sentence out on parole. So as they give the example, 18 months, and you serve a year, and then 6 months on parole. And then look what it says. This state has a revocation rate in excess of 55%, which means that over half of the people violate. And so this state has explored the transition from prison to community model, but implementation have been stalled because there are problems with staff morale, probably pay and money and stuff like that, or staff not wanting to get on with TPC, and you know what TPC is, and lack of understanding as to how it should work. So what you're going to do in this assignment is you're going to identify 2 recommendations for this state. Okay. So remember, as part of your recent promotion, you've been researching your state's process and policies, and you served as a consultant. So the first state, though, that you're assessing, whether it's your state or not, has determinate sentencing. All right. For this assignment, you'll be creating a proposal that'll be written, by the way, in essay form, identifying 2 recommendations for this state, including examples, why you think these recommendations would be impactful, explain how each recommendation is aligned with the research, including R&R and TPC and other principles, and supply supporting credible resources or credible sources. How many times have I said that in this course? You can lose count of that. But I will remind you once we get to the rubric that you cannot get from emerging if you don't have credible sources. And what does that mean? It does not mean references. It means citations to support your statements. Well, your recommendations, after you do the research and work, your recommendations, that's what I mean. Explain how each recommendation, remember, you're the one who's doing the process. Remember, you're the research, you're the person being promoted. So that's you. That's you. So identify 2 recommendations for the state. That's you. Specific examples, why you think these recommendations will be most impactful for the state. Explain how each recommendation aligns with research. Research will involve you knowing about R&R, TPC. Okay, transition from prison to community. That name tells you exactly what you're going to be doing. And what you're doing, we're going to talk about that as well. Well, here's your answer to your question. Remember I said research your state's process relating to release planning. And then the first state you have been asked to assess is a determinate sentencing state. If your state is a determinate sentencing state, then you'll be doing that. But all states are not determinate sentencing states. None of you are in Illinois, but Illinois is a determinate sentencing state. I don't know whether your states are. You'll determine that from your research. Okay? And I think we've discussed determinate and indeterminate sentencing previously. Didn't we in this class discuss determinate and indeterminate sentencing? Yes. So then um, you should know the answer to that question about your state already. Does that answer your question? Okay, all right. So explain how each recommendation align with the research and its credible sources and proper spelling, grammar, and so forth. So now you will discover that one of the things that is not mentioned here is the length of it. But remember, it's going to be APA. When it says credible sources, remember, you must have a cover page. Hear me? You must have a cover page. You must cite the sources of your statements. If I say that individuals in Illinois are subjected to determinate sentencing, then I'll cite the source of where I got that information properly with APA format. And then I'll have a reference page at the end. All right. So let's look at this. And by the way, it needs to be double spaced. I'm saying that up front. So can you get a mastery grade or proficient grade or competence grade without credible sources? The answer is no. Because if you read it, it says incomplete or confusing explanation, missing examples for each. Then it talks about credible sources, supporting, explaining these R&R and TPC and other identified principles. And then you'll lose a point for error in spelling. You'll lose 4 points for errors in spelling, grammar, and so forth. By the way, I do run your papers through Grammarly, which I've been talking about since the beginning. So my thing to you is just to show you, you need to make sure you satisfy this column. And I already said, act as if these don't exist. The only reason I'm mentioning it now is because too many of you end up over here merely because you don't even cite your sources. You don't give credible sources as it states throughout the rubrics. So we're going to talk about R&R and TPC. All right. Any questions about the written assignment? No? Okay. Anybody else? Don't be afraid, because it could be the difference in your grades. Because sometimes students have questions, but they don't want to ask them, and it might help that I clarify it for you, or that it might help another student. So, okay. All right. Oh, okay. Everybody's good. That's here. So, all right. So I'm going to go move on. All right. And you know that's due Sunday the 7th. Okay. So now let's get to the module itself and talk about some of these things. So you're reading, I sent you the PowerPoints for chapter 7. And the PowerPoints I send you for chapter 7, by the way, are the full chapter 7. But the material that you're focusing in is only 6 pages of chapter 7. But the full chapter 13, 15, and 16. So we're going to talk about the challenges and corrections, and TPC review. We're going to talk about those to help you. So what are the challenges? That's what the topic is. What are the challenges correction officers face, which involve jails, which are short-term, and prison, which are long-terms? And the release process that takes place, because the release process involves allowing people to be outside or finish their time or term outside of the facility that they're incarcerated in, whether it's jail or prison. So it says offenders are people who are on probation and parole that we help, and our goal is to protect the public. So what we want to do is give those individuals enough information and instructions to help them not to revoke or either to violate parole or probation. And that it says here that incarceration is the most expensive, and I agree, because you've heard me say more than once, it is cheaper to educate than to incarcerate. Because when you incarcerate, then you got to provide food, shelter, and clothing for people in tight situations, and where they're likely to find themselves in trouble because of the overcrowdedness that takes place, and it gets pretty tough. And also, the other thing that I always remind people, that the longer you're in prison, the longer you stand, more you stand of becoming a criminal, even if you went in and you weren't not determined that you were not guilty. Incarceration can expose you to individuals who've been in there a long time. So we have high rates of recidivism. That's what it means when it says U.S. prisons have revolving doors. And I can tell you that during the years that I represented people, there are people who went in for a while and came out and they caught another case, which means that while they were even on probation or parole, or even after they completed it, and they ended up having to have me to represent them in a whole nother case. So the key thing is to keep people from having to go into prison or be recidivists, where parole or probation is revoked. And it's just a mad cycle, and it takes a lot of costs and so forth. So the primary goals is to protect the public, okay? And how do you do that? By addressing the issues that sent those individuals and put them in the system in the first place. And so that's why I'm a person who's very much in favor of rehabilitation. You've heard me talk about that many times. And you've heard me talk about getting people to 6 o'clock on the clock. You guys remember that? Getting people to 6 o'clock as opposed to 12 o'clock where they start when they're in trouble. Yeah, and getting them to do what I call a 180 and go in a new direction in life. And so what we want to do is to two main goals. We want to have them to be successful, and we also want to protect the public. And so one of the ways of doing that is making sure that they satisfy the requirements. Now, technical violations create the problem where individuals find themselves being sent away and being sent back, and new violations, of course, give them more time in terms of it. But remember, once again, it's contrary to public safety. So it says the goal of public safety is questioned when violations are both technical and the new offense occurs. But the key thing that we want to do today is to provide sensible revocation. So even if they revoke, determine whether their behavior threatens the public and require return to prison, and delays what we call reintegration. Reintegration is where you come back into the community and that kind of thing. So the challenges, the primary ones are, and then, okay, let's see. Sometimes this allows us to open it. Let's see. Okay, it just blows it up. Okay. So the point of the matter is these are the 2 points. So if anybody say, what are the primary goals of corrections? Public safety and client success or offender. Okay, that's it. All right, so those are the 2 challenges. You want these 2 things to come together. That will result in a successful completion of parole and probation. So now the challenges. Here are the challenges specifically. And we're going to go into that, and you'll see some of it. And I'm going to give you part of it, and then I'm going to get out of it and move on. So these you can go ahead and look at the, and so then here are the challenges in corrections, dealing with overcrowding, litigation, staff training, that's the administration part. Wardens have to deal, are the individuals who are in charge for the safety and security and release, offender release, and barriers. We would prepare individuals for release so that they're in a state to rehabilitate. In other words, getting them once again to 6 on the clock. And the challenges are offender violations and revocation. And those are the issues that we face with parole, that parole officers and probation officers have to deal with, and using discretion for success. Again, the number one thing that we don't want to do is, unless the offense is extremely serious, is lock them back up. Because imagine how the system would be. It's already overcrowded. It's overstressed. If every time a person violates, rather than give them what we call sensible revocation, something to help them. Again, using the example, my favorite is a person on drugs, is give them more time. That ain't it. It's not going to solve the problem. They need help. They need they need to find themselves in situations where they are not subjected to going around in circles. Okay, so next, the problems we already know about: overcrowding, to avoid lawsuits, and you remember employees can be sued for individuals, and there's litigation. Like, for example, individuals can file suits for saying that their religious beliefs are violated, or as in the case of the guy who was the QAnon sham, if you know what I'm talking about, the guy that had the headrest with the horns on it at the Capitol, has gone on what they call a hunger strike, where he is in jail awaiting trial, and a judge has ruled that he can come off his hunger strike because they said that he was used to eating organic food. So therefore, the judge ruled in their favor. So now the jail has to make exceptions for him. What do you think that's going to do to some other people? And people are constantly bringing suits for things like that. Staff performance and how they operate, and well, which kind of contributes to the fact that more and more staff are educated with the college degrees. It used to be that you could become a jail correction officer or a prison correction officer with high school. But now more and more jurisdictions are moving towards requiring a minimum of an associate's degree, and people are moving toward bachelor's. And that keeps down litigation too, because you're more professional. And then program evaluation, required jails programs, quality programs to help people. And so comment, you can't hear the voice here. You can go through and listen to each of these yourself. They take a little time, but you want to understand each of these areas: prison administration, the duties of the warden, the organizational structure, chain of command, where the warden is in charge, and then you have the person who's under them. Correctional officers today, very important, the pay, the hours, and then the role in offender change, release programming, eliminating barriers to release. That is to prepare individuals for being back in society. And so getting a plan together, preparing them to be released, and making sure that a good job is done so that when they do come out of that cell, that they're able to contribute in a positive fashion. I'm just giving you summaries. You'll be able to find this in your reading and in the PowerPoints. So here are the barriers as to things that are taking place: relationships between peers and family, the attitude of the individual, the personality of the individual, whether or not they get employment or not. We already talked about substance abuse. That's a big ticket. And then leisure. Non-criminogenic have to do with, do they have a place to live? Do they have identification that'll help them get jobs and so forth? The birth certificate, helping them set up bank accounts. The things that help individuals to function outside of jail: transportation, not necessarily get them a car, but a way to get around, medication that they need for their health problems, and then insurance to cover them as well, which is generally public aid insurance. So we deal now with transition from prison to community, TPC, which is one of the things that you are studying about in your reading. And the idea is to, as they say, you start this from day one. You start preparing to release them the first day that they're there. And that it is important for every correction officer, staff, or leader to be on that page, to prepare them from transition from prison life to living in the community. Okay, that's what TPC is, and we'll elaborate a little bit more here. Now, here's what works in prison: target thinking, meeting the EBT criteria. What doesn't work is sanctions and punishment. The key thing is minimize the sanctions and punishment, because you're not, it's like a timeout. I always tell people that timeouts without some teaching is just a delay in them doing something wrong anyway. And then the timeout that works in terms of being incarcerated will make that person probably more upset. They'll pick up bad habits, and then they'll operate and end up back in as a recidivist. So what makes a difference? And this is something that correction officers that I know, including some of my students who are correction officers, will tell me. What makes the difference is that you must be firm and fair, but they also add one other that's not here, and that's consistent. That's how you have to deal with individuals as a correction officer, and that's one of the challenges. The firm, fair, and consistent approach. Showing favors can create a whole can of worms that you don't want to open. You need to be respected, and yeah, it is. It is the same thing. Well, remember what it is. These are actually, remember, you're the parent when you're the correction officer, and the individuals there are the kids who are learning life lessons. So that was a very good observation, and that is exactly the approach that you take. But be careful about petting them so much. You pet your kids more, but you know what I'm talking about there. But yeah, firm, fair, and consistent. Use your communication skills, particularly your speaking skills. Don't talk down to people. You know, don't treat people with disrespect. Even if they are, I don't care, the worst of the worst, you still can't do that. I tell that to my law enforcement people, and I tell it to my corrections people as well. And then helping them to change, i.e. getting them do things to help them deal with the issues that they are dealing with. So I'm getting ready to speed up because we got a lot more to cover. And then these are the things that deal with what we call evidence-based practices. I mean, these are the things that you're going to deal with, the risk and assess those risks. Care planning, effective intervention and collaboration with the stakeholders. Stakeholders are all the parties who are involved. Risk need assessment. So you have to determine what is good and target those needs. Needs are dealing with criminogenic. We talked about those a little earlier. When you go through this yourself, you won't be stopping, and the whole thing is about 25 minutes long if I was to let it run. Case planning involves planning for those offenders and the dynamics of the things and specific that you have to do to help them. Remember, people have different problems, different reasons that cause them to have to be incarcerated. So I'm going to skip these. And so mentioning stakeholders early, and that involves community service providers, individuals who provide drug programs, second chance programs, education programs, employment programs that goes under second chance situations, and then to help that individual to become successful. So I'm going to get out of that. So these are just some of the challenges, but look at the whole thing and you will see. Okay, so now we're going to go and move on. So dealing with TPC, a review of TPC, that is the transition from prison to the community. And these are things that we must do in order to accomplish that, to reduce recidivism or returning back, and hurting people or victimizing people, which enhances public safety. And then in the process, what you're really doing is you're making the community safer for everybody. And that's the key. So you could click on each of these and you'll be able to see what assessment is all about. And so I'm not going to go into that. Look at each of these. I want to skip over to this one. Okay. Pro-social support, extended and immediate family members. So that's what that is. Dealing with family members, mentors, peers. Correction doesn't work alone. It takes as they say, it takes a village to raise a child. Well, that's the same kind of thing. Faith-based communities like churches and other organizations like that, treatment providers understand R&R and utilize their programming, such as drugs and alcohol and things like this. Complications, the lack of understanding of treatment. The key thing is, once again, looking at all of these points, is to make sure that you're providing something to replace the attitude that got them in there. That's the bottom line. Okay, and that's pretty much it. Now I want to go over, before I go to the next section, is vocabulary review. And you'll do better with this once you've gone through your reading and stuff. But these are things that you'll want to do before you do your actual quiz. And so, chain of command. Which of these is chain of command? The first one, the second one, or the third one? Mission management principle holding that a supervisor can effectively oversee only a limited number of subordinates. Okay, let's see if you're right. And boundary violations. Okay, I was wondering about that. So, what were you saying? What's boundary violations? Are you saying that chain of command is not the correct one, that you didn't pick the right one for that? Is that what you're saying? Which one should you have picked? Because I agree with you. Yep, you're right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. See, that's because you didn't think about that. So what are boundary violations? The first, the second one, or the third one? A management principle holding that a supervisor can effectively oversee only a limited number of subordinates. Then let's try span of control. Let's see how you did. Which one did you get wrong? Okay. So you want to switch to the last two, right? I thought so. All right. I knew that. Okay. There you go. Okay. But see, here's the deal. When you're doing this and preparing, you're doing this for practice. Just remember, on the test, when you actually do it, you may or may not have enough time to go back. So that's what the purpose for this is, and you begin to see. So I'm not going to do any more of those, okay, in the interest of time, because we have these other things we need to do. Okay. So now I'm going to give you uh, a term to get your points. And the reason I'm going to do it like this is, normally I would do it at the very, very end. I'm going to do it now is because I want you to be aware that you need to also look at what I'm going to talk about next, because I'm going to talk about the assignments for week number 6. So, you have any ideas about what I might pick? That's subpar of it. What about the overall topic? Yay! Yay! No, Faith, you were partially right. Seiko was right on it. It's sensible revocation. That's exactly what the overall topic was. If you um, pay attention to the whole overall theme, we dealt with that. So that's what you're going to get. Give me sensible revocation, and you will get all your points. Any questions about week 5 before I move to week 6? And it'll be pretty fast. I won't be long with that. Any questions? Okay. Let's go to week 6, module 6. So your assignments, as I told you, are very few. You're going to deal with your feedback, peer feedback. You'll be posting your proposal from week 5 assignment. So the written assignment that you do in week 5. Release planning as your initial post. And then in your reply post, providing your peers with feedback on their proposals. So you can copy and paste. This is one of the times when it's okay. Copy and paste your initial proposal from week 5. So you already have it. In your response post, that's your initial post. So, wow, your initial post is going to be like already done. So, and isn't that easy? I know you all know how to copy and paste. Okay. I'm messing with you, but we don't encourage that. But in this case, we want you to do that. So what you need to be aware of is what you're doing in week 5 for your written assignment, not your discussion post, is going to actually be your initial post. All right. And then in your reply post, okay, in your response post, review a peer's proposal to evaluate the criterion, recommendations, alignment, and you'll deal with those things. Determine the level of achievement for each criterion, such as emerging, competence, proficiency, and mastery. So don't worry about having to write that. That's just a reminder of what we talk about all the time. Yeah, that's what it is. It really is. That's exactly what it is. Yep, you hit it right on the head. Explain how the criteria is placed at that level of achievement. So what you're going to have a chance to do is something that you never get a chance to do, and that is to do what I do. You get a chance to grade. And actually, your grade should fall in the category of one of the same category that I fall in with the grading of that student. So you get a chance to be the teacher at the end. And so both of those posts are due on the 9th. Okay, and then at least offer one suggestion to improve the criterion. Any questions about that discussion post? It's pretty basic. All right, looks like none. Okay. All right. And then, of course, your quiz. Now, you'll have 3 opportunities to complete this, which means you can start doing it Monday or Tuesday. But remember, at the end of Tuesday, the highest one is the one that's going to be your final grade. You will not go beyond Tuesday. If you go beyond Tuesday with any of those, then it's not going to count. I know. I already know. Okay. I know what you meant. So it's nothing different. So that's why I said it's not a lot to deal with. Then you can look at the topics, which you'll see. Basically, it's nothing much to it. You deal with evidence-based practices and implementation from research that you have utilized to complete your assignments, such as the mission of the person involved in corrections, the costs, the methods used, and then all these hook together to dilemmas that you face as a correction officer. And it explains it here. Tells you what the mission is, the methods, the structure, the personnel, that's the people who do the job, and then the amount that it costs. So all of this works together and the issues that you face as a corrections expert. Okay, guys, any questions about anything that I'm saying here for week 6? Okay, so you guys are all set. I do want to say this to each of you. The classes that I'm going to teach, I think you asked me, was that the question? Let me see. Oh, well, I teach drugs and crime. Do you guys, any of you guys taking drugs and crime next term? Oh yeah. Well, don't say it. Don't put it privately. Put it out there so everyone can see. Because I'm going to just say it. So Mercedes, you're going to. Well, what courses are you? Okay, no, anything that's in criminal justice. I don't teach sociology. I did study it, and actually, it's funny because all the stuff is sociology. But uh, criminal justice courses. Anybody taking? But if you're taking drugs and crime, you already signed up for drugs and crime. You take it 512. I don't know what that means. 512. You mean in the spring? Oh, oh, okay. Take it for graduation. Oh, you'll start it in the spring. That's the spring. Okay. That's the spring term, term 1. But yeah, I will be teaching that course starting Wednesday for the term. And then the other course, anybody taking Introduction to Criminal Law next term, starting Wednesday. So you're taking that starting for the next term? Oh, okay. Yeah. See, Faith was in that class. You were in that class with me, right? Faith, weren't you? That was last term, wasn't it? Oh, you didn't have me for that? Who did you have for Introduction to Criminal Law? Then you must have section 2, because I have section 1. Who'd you have for Introduction to Criminal Law? Do you remember? Nope. Okay. I don't know that. You probably had an adjunct then, other than that, because I'm the full-time person who teaches it. So yeah, so then Mercedes, I'll be seeing you then starting Wednesday uh, in the J115. Of course I know Arlene Carlin. What class are you taking with her? Eileen Carlin and I have something in common. 2 things in common. We used to be both state program coordinators. Okay. Okay. No problem. Um, Criminal justice classes until this one. But I can tell you that Eileen Carlin and I have the same birthday. Both of our birthdays are May 3rd. And then the other thing that we had in common is that she was state program coordinator for Minnesota, and I was state program coordinator for Illinois. We were both hired in 2014 for those positions before we became full-time instructors. So yeah, her big area is law enforcement and corrections. So anyway, so I'll see you next term, Mercedes, and probably some other people who are not here today. So I wish you guys the best. Yeah, I enjoy teaching that. I was a criminal lawyer for a long time, and so that's my big ticket. So yeah, so I wish you guys the best. Stay safe, and get those assignments in, and you really don't have much of a break because you start new classes the next day after Tuesday. Yeah. Yeah, well, I don't give answers. Uh, I gave the live classroom code. Do any of you guys know what the live classroom code is? So she'll know. I talked about that before I went into week 6. Seiko, you're the only one left here. Do you remember um what the code is? The phrase? Yeah, there it is. Okay, now you got it. Okay. See, I wasn't gonna do it. Uh, no, you were right. Uh, okay, you're welcome. My thing is not to spoon feed you guys. I don't want to do that because you got to learn how to. That's why I'm very successful. And this shirt I got on, Northwestern Law. I got my butt kicked, but guess what? I'm I'm doing pretty good. And I'm 71 May 3rd, and I don't look 71. People don't think I'm that old. But I am. So you guys stay safe. Look forward to seeing you guys and I'm not talking just to you guys, everybody who sees this that I'll see next quarter. But I also teach, the question is contemporary issues in criminal justice, realities in criminal justice. I also teach what other stuff that you might have. Um, well, pretty much in this area before you get your associates, those are the ones I teach. Those are the main courses that you end up taking in criminal justice. That is Introduction to Corrections, Drugs and Crime, Introduction to Criminal Law, and then you have those seminars. Those are usually at the end, the very end. Realities in criminal justice, and then contemporary issues in criminal justice, which I really love. It's a new course that they did. So, oh, you have that one in the spring. Which one? Realities in criminal justice or contemporary issues in criminal justice? Contemporary. Oh, both of those. I don't teach criminology. That's usually for the police. I was a police officer, but there are others. Patty Laney. Let's see who else teaches that. Rose Pagacic. Uh, and I think also that I think Eileen teaches it too. Juvenile justice. No, I taught that long time ago, but I haven't done that lately. I don't know who does juvenile justice now. I think it might be either Patty or either I think it's Patty Laney who does that. But okay, Police in America, that generally is a course that Rose does or either Eileen teaches that. But you got to remember, see, I'm talking about full-time people. Um, and you might have somebody that I don't know who's an adjunct professor. That's a part-time professor. All right, guys. Well, it's been good chatting with you, hanging out with you. Uh, yeah, yeah, yeah. You get Eileen in the class, tell her I said, hey, she and I are good friends. Yeah, like I said, her birthday is May 3rd, and mine is May 3rd too. So we always wish each other happy birthday. I think I'm right. I'm almost sure that hers, I know it's in May. So, all right, you guys stay safe, and I wish you the best, Mercedes, and you and your family. You guys be well, and I'll keep you guys in my prayers. I always keep all my students in it. Good night, guys, and have a good rest of the quarter, which lasts a few more days. Okay, you're welcome. See ya.